Hello and welcome to another Paula Armstrong Ceramics. So we're in October again, so it's time for a Halloween make. And I've done a pumpkin before, so I thought this time I might try something a little bit different and have a go with a skull. So I've got some nice white clay that I'm going to use to make a pinch pot skull. So I hope you enjoy. Okay, so I've given my clay a quick wedge and I've shaped it into a ball. So the first thing I'm going to do is chop this in half and then turn it into a hollow ball. So we have a cheese one. I'm just going to wrap this around about halfway. Put the handles into one hand on top, and just pull straight through. I'm going to take one of the halves, thumb from my dominant hand, press into the center of the clay, turning it around as I go, so I end up with a daisy pattern from my thumbprints. I'm not worried about making this too thin for the skull because I need a bit of clay to move around and stretch as I'm working. So, but I am just going to even it out a bit because the pressing down with the thumbprints gives you some bits that are a little bit thicker and some that are a bit thinner. So I'm just going to rub over the surface and kind of even it out. I'm pressing against the palm of my hand rather than my fingers wherever I can, just to try and keep the outside a bit smoother, because if you press against your fingers you get the marks from your fingers and then you have to do some smoothing later. So there we go, there's one half, and then we're going to repeat with the other side. So print into the middle and then the daisy pattern all the way around. Now this one needs to fit onto the other piece, so I need to make sure that I make it the right size. So I'm going to make sure as I go that I know what I need to do to get it that same size. At the moment it's a bit smaller than the other one, so I'm going to keep making it a little bigger. I do want the inside of this to be quite neat and smooth for this, because you're going to be able to see through the eye sockets and the nose into the center. Okay, that's about right. What you should find is where you've got the rise and dips on the edges, we should be able to find a corresponding raise and dip. There we go. On each half. Right, so that's those two halves to go together. Next up, we attach the two. Okay, I've just made a nice little slip pot by making a pinch pot and putting some water in and mixing up some slip in the middle there. So we're going to start off to attach the two pieces. We're going to score the two surfaces that we want to attach. So it doesn't have to be deep, you want just nice surface marks. This clay is reasonably wet, so I'm not going to worry too much about this. For the join, or put too much slip on. We don't want the clay getting really wet, so we don't want too much slip on them. So if you want to be really sure that things stick together, you can go around and cross-hatch your scoring, adding a few more marks. That can sometimes help. And then we're going to pop a little bit of slip. I'd say not a lot. We just need a little bit to help this join together. This clay is nice and wet anyway. So let's find how they line up again. Okay. Once it's in line, if you pop it in your hands and then just use your fingertips to make sure that the edges go into each other. Don't press too hard, else you'll end up with it dipping in the middle, and we don't want that. We do still want a spherical shape, even though we're going to be altering this to make the skull shape. So just get these sides all nicely together. And then we blend over these joins. You can do this with your fingers or you can do it with a tool. Just remember not to press in. We're looking at scraping clay across the surface, not pressing in. Because if you press in, we end up with the dip in the middle where the join is, and we don't want that. There we go. We want that join to disappear, so we don't want to be able to see it anymore. Okay, and then we can gently reshape. And there's our sphere. And this is our base shape for the skull. Okay, we can use a rubber kidney to smooth the surface of our sphere. And then we need to shape. So we need our two kind of pieces to our skull. So we've got the jaw shape underneath. So that's a bit and I just do that by tapping to make it the kind of shape, and you can pull some of the clay I've left more than enough clay so that I've got some space to pull the shapes out so that I can make the jaw at the bottom here. Okay, you can see where the join is there, it's kind of split open a bit again, so I'm just going to go over that and seal it back up, smooth it. When you reshape the pinch pot spheres, they can do that, so it just needs to be resealed. There we go. So we've kind of got a skull shape going on there. So the first thing I'm going to do is decide kind of where I want the eyes to be. So I guess put the eyes are probably going to be somewhere around that point, I think. So I'm going to gently press my thumbs in on either side here. And then the side of the skull, we have an edge down here that goes into where the jaw is. So this kind of disappears back here a bit. So I'm not going to be too anatomically correct with this. This is a really simple skull. I'm not going into very great detail, but I am going to actually cut holes into the eye sockets eventually. But for now, I'm just going to press these in. Like so. There we go. Okay, and we have a bit of a brow ridge. Now, the shape of the eye sockets you can change to change the expression of your skull. So if you think the same as if you were drawing like characters in a cartoon, if you change the angles according to those kind of simple expressions, then you can end up with an angry skull or a happy skull, a laughing skull, all the rest of it. So you can have a play with that if you fancy. Right, the next bit is the nose. So this is kind of in two parts here, and I actually want to lift some of the clay up the top here. So I'm going to use a tool and go in and lift. Bottom should be a bit flatter, I think. Rather than kind of an upside down heart, this should be very flat. There we go. Okay. Smooth this. Okay, next up is the tricky bit. We're going to have a go at doing the mouth. So we need lots of teeth in this. I'm going to just draw in. So around here we're going to have a dip underneath the kind of eye sockets that comes in like that, and then this is the jaw bone coming in there for the lower jaw, around like that. So if I put the same in this side, this is the lower jaw down here. around there. So we have a, oh, I need a chin. I'm wondering, I think I might need a little bit of extra clay going on here. I haven't got a chin. I think I might need a little bit of a chin under here. So I'm just going to add a little bit of clay in. There we go. Although I'm thinking maybe that should have been a bit further down. Right down there. Okay, so that's our bottom jaw. So teeth. That's at an angle. I've got a smirking skull. And then the bottom teeth. There. And this is just going to kind of disappear into the side. There we go. And then we're going to put some teeth. Not too many. Now you can have a lot of fun sculpting these teeth, rounding off the bottoms and doing the proper teeth shape if you want to. Or you can do them fairly simply. Most people recognize teeth without too much need for making them very precise. They also grow out of the skull, so it's worth kind of adjusting the kind of edge of the above. To kind of show that, but not too much. It needs to be quite subtle. And it's there on the bottom as well, but not even more subtly. There we go. So my last job is to cut out the eye sockets. Try not to let any drop inside or you're going to have a rattling skull, which may not be a bad thing. There we go. Okay, and there is our Halloween skull. You can do much more blending and tidying as you want. To smooth this out. With the eye sockets you should be able to get inside and do some smoothing with the join of the two halves of the pinch pots, if you can still see those as well if you want. But do be careful doing that, because obviously as you go the eye sockets will just get bigger and bigger and bigger as they get stretched a bit. So don't do it too much. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you for the next video.